I'm only doing this for the thumbnail. I've already done all my tests on this light. Let's get undone. What is happening, everybody? I'm Gerald Undone, and today we're taking a look at the SO-28TD from Falcon Eyes. 28 because it's a 28-watt LED light panel, TD because it's bicolor from tungsten to daylight, and SO because it's part of Falcon Eyes Sophie's series, for which you can get two bigger lights, a 48-watt and a 68-watt. It's a pre-diffused light, so it's already pretty soft without putting any modifiers on it, and I'll tell you right now that I am pretty impressed with it, but let's start off with what you get in the box. The light and its accessories come in a well-padded, zippered soft case. Inside, you'll find the panel itself, a manual, and the two-piece power supply. There's also a recess in the case for a Sony NP-F battery, because this light can also be run on battery power, but a battery is not included with this package. This light got several things right that many other manufacturers seem to struggle with, the first of which involves that battery versus power supply. I'm happy to report that they both produce the same illuminance regardless of the power source. Oftentimes in other lights there's a reduction of output when you switch from the dedicated power supply to a battery, but that's not the case here. Also, you get an impressive amount of life out of it when you're on battery power as well. I get close to 2 hours at 100% power using an NP-F 970, that's the larger of the Sony batteries. And because it only takes one battery instead of the more common two, if you do have two batteries, this is going to last you a really long time. Quick note on that, by the way, there's no charging of the battery when you're using the power supply. They're on two completely separate systems, and you switch between them using the switch right here, with the middle position being the off position. And this back panel is actually where I expected it to be the weakest, because it comes in quite affordably at around $189 US or $249 Canadian, and a lot of lights in that price range have quite a few annoyances on their back panel. The most common ones being the color temperature. Often you don't actually get a color temperature display, and instead you have to balance it yourself with like different knobs, one for the warm lights and one for the cool lights, and you never actually know what temperature you're on, and you kind of have to figure that out. And the second thing going along with that is there's usually a lack of information in general on the back, and the displays themselves don't usually have any kind of touch controls, so they can be a little bit more tedious. Well, the Falcon Eyes suffers from none of that. First of all, it's all touch control, and it works surprisingly well. You control the brightness and the temperature, which ranges from 3000 to 5600 Kelvin, with logical up and down arrows that move quickly enough to prevent annoyance, and a visual display for both. I found the temperatures to be pretty accurate, and the panel itself has a color accuracy rating of 95+ on CRI and TLCI. It also displays your battery life, which I love, and then it has information for group and channel for controlling multiple lights. Now, one con to this panel is that it doesn't come with remote control, so there are going to be some limitations on the controlling of multiple lights, but if you do have multiple lights set up in series, you can control them all with just the back panel of one light. And that's pretty cool. The build quality, I would say, is above standard for the price. The U-bracket and front bezel are metal, and the back plate is plastic, but the plastic is well molded and doesn't feel cheap. Now, one thing I discovered that isn't mentioned anywhere is that there's a AA battery compartment underneath the NP-F battery tray, but none of the battery contacts are in there, so you can't actually use it. They don't advertise it as taking AA's, so perhaps this design was used in another light that did take AA's, and rather than increase costs by retooling, they just decided to use the same compartment in multiple lights. But I did think that it was kind of funny to, one, find the compartment, and then to try and put AA batteries in there. The U-bracket allows for 360-degree rotation, and it locks down well and easily. If I did have one complaint about the mount, though, it would be that the 5/8" socket is a bit narrow. I find it hard to fit on some of the thicker spigots. It takes a bit more force than I'd like sometimes to get it on and off light stands, so if they would just make it maybe a millimeter or two wider, I think it would be perfect. Another thing that I'm really impressed by with this light compared to other manufacturers is the consistency of output through temperature changes. Something you'll find often in lights is that the middle temperature on a bicolor light is the brightest one, because that's the one when most of the lights are active, and if you go all the way to warm or all the way to cool, the power generally sort of rolls off on each side of that. But with this panel, there's very little variance between the 3000 Kelvin and the 5600 Kelvin when it comes to output. There is sort of a peak around 4500 Kelvin, but it is minor, and the total variance of the entire light is less than a third of a stop. And that's pretty impressive. So that's pretty much it for the technical stuff. Now there's two usages that I want to talk about that I'm pretty excited about. The first is for product photography. Because this light is so compact and because it's already so soft, it really opens up the opportunity for me to get close and find some unique shots when it comes to shooting the cameras and the lenses that I do for these videos and for my product photography work. It can be quite cumbersome sometimes to try and fit an umbrella or a softbox in a tight, product photography setting without it getting in the way or blocking your shots. But this light actually solves most of those problems, and it competes pretty well against those other configurations when it comes to softness. And this model is quite compact. Now there are bigger models, like I was saying, if you want something to give you a fuller wrap with the 48 and the 68 watt versions. But like I was saying in my previous video, I've been looking for something to replace those paper lanterns that I have in terms of both better color accuracy, but also just giving me a little bit more versatility. And I think I might have found that solution with the Falcon Eyes here, because yes, it's compact, it's actually similar in size to those Philips LEDs inside of the paper lanterns, but it's much more color accurate, and I can really get it and move it around to give me sort of the best light that I want. So I'm really excited to keep using this for my bench work. The second application that I've been testing this light for is using it as a key light in this type of shooting environment right here. Now right now I'm using an Aputure 672 behind an umbrella, and I chose that because it was already smaller and more compact than, say, a 120D with a softbox. But it still does take up quite a bit of space with an umbrella on it. And price-wise, if you put, say, a cheap umbrella from Amazon on it, it'll cost you about $110 US to $150 Canadian more than the Falcon Eyes will, but it carries most of the same benefits. It can run on power supply or batteries, just like the Falcon Eyes, but it does take 2 batteries, like I was saying earlier. And it's not bi-color, so you can't adjust the temperature at all. You'd have to use a CTO if you wanted to warm up the color. But it does come with a remote control. Now it's definitely more powerful than the Falcon Eyes when you have no modifier on it. In fact, it's about 2 stops brighter, but then you get this harsh light with weird LED effects. So once you throw an umbrella in front of it and diffuse it and bring it down to this nice soft light, it actually becomes almost exactly the same output as the Falcon Eyes. An advantage, however, to having the Aputure behind an umbrella is that you get a bigger light source than the Falcon Eyes, which of course is one of the 2 key components to getting soft light: the size of the light and the proximity to the subject. The Falcon Eyes also has a much wider spread of its light. The Aputure has a clear beam angle, depending on whether you get the wide or the spot, where the Falcon Eyes is just a 180-degree circle spread out completely wide in every direction. But I didn't find a huge difference when it came to either the spread or the size of the light in this particular scenario between the 2 when it comes to how much I like the light or the softness of it. But I'll let you decide. So right now, this is my regular situation with the Aputure 672 at 33% power being shot through an umbrella, and it looks like this. And now here it is with the Falcon Eyes in the same position, at approximately the same distance and angle, and also at 33% power, but not behind an umbrella because the Falcon Eyes doesn't really need one. This is what it looks like. And now here's both side by side. So let me know in the comments which one you like better. I like both, but it's hard to ignore the added value that you get from the Falcon Eyes. And for me, it's adjustable color temperature, consistency in output, great battery life, and compact versatility, while remaining significantly cheaper than the competition, make it a very compelling product. But that's going to be it for me. I hope you found this video helpful or at least entertaining, and if you did, make sure you leave it the old thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. But if you did not find this video helpful or entertaining, feel free to hit the dislike button twice. Alright, I'm done.